Good evening, everybody. My name's Chris Griffiths. That's my title. I'm the Director of Maritime Sustainability for the Royal Thames Yacht Club. That's in my spare time. And I really have to thank you all for coming. It's fantastic to see so many people supporting us. And the whole idea of these talks is to get you engaged in maritime sustainability, which has many different aspects. So we're starting at the cutting edge here, the actual racing on the water. I've got a bit of history to tell here, actually. North Sails UK was set up in 1974 by RTYC member and Olympic gold medalist Ian McDonald-Smith, who is right here. And the rest is history. Well done, Ian. The business is now owned by Peter Dubins, who is a Royal Thames member. He's been a great supporter of the club. He's probably our highest donor and supported many of my campaigns when I was Rear Commodore sailing. Peter is also one of the founders of the Ocean Family Foundation, which supports maritime conservation projects around the world. Right, now back to this evening. We have an amazing cast here. Mădălina Preda. So Mădălina is the Chief Sustainability Officer at North Sails, with a focus on reducing emissions from their products and operations across sailing, action sports, and apparel. And Mădălina was formerly the communications specialist for Greenpeace International. Wow.
I was.
And the brand and environment manager at Patagonia. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Next, we have Jono Macbeth. Jono has the outstanding achievement of 3 America's Cup wins across 6 Cup campaigns. That's pretty cool. He was part of Team New Zealand for a decade before moving to Oracle. Why did you move?
Yeah. I think they call that defecting.
And he was with them for their double Cup triumph from 2010 and 2013. So Jono studied sustainability at Cambridge University. He's not just a pretty face. And his brief is to drive sustainable solutions across the sail-making business. Hands-on. Thanks for coming. Nigel Musto. There's no bigger name in the marine technical clothing business than Nigel Musto. Apparently he's just changed his name now to Nigel North. Nigel was an accomplished sailor. Olympic level, offshore racing, he's done it all. And he's been creating sailing kit for 35 years. And he's still dry.
Always.
So he joined North Sails in 2019 with one objective: to create the best foul weather gear on the planet. And the North Sails Performance Clothing range was launched in 2021. So thanks for coming. So we have a fantastic panel here. I will stop talking and let them get on with it. So please carry on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. I'm sure many of you are aware today marked the end of the Around the World race that Gitana team won. We're especially excited about this win because the team is not only boasting North Sails, but they're also decked out in full performance apparel kit. Nigel, could you share some insight in how the race went?
Well, there's a surprise. For those of you who don't know, they finished at about 7:45 this morning. Probably the most extreme race ever. Single-handed, non-stop, round the world in old teams. Old teams being the 110-foot super trimarans. But for a man to go round on his own in 50 days, racing, quite an incredible feat. And then 5 of them, or 6 of them started. 5 of them hopefully will finish. But Charles, we've worked with for a long time. on the sailmaking side and also on the clothing side. He was part of our development team developing the new performance products. Good friend, awesome man. Probably having won 2 ocean races and this and numerous route du Rums, Jacques Varbes, I would think will go down as one of the great French offshore single hands.
Sounds very impressive.
He is.
And like he needed very high performing gear in order to make such a feat happen. So the question that we're going to try to answer today is, can you make this high performance gear and sails in a sustainable way? That's what Jono and I work on day to day. At North Sails, we say that we're on a journey to become ocean positive. What does that mean to be ocean positive? First, we're trying to understand and measure where the impact is. There's many ways to look at an ecological footprint that we have. Something that we started doing is first to look at our carbon footprint. And I'll try to not use any technical language, but I just want to explain a little bit how difficult it is to understand where your hotspots are in terms of pollution, and why it's so important to understand them in order to give priority to the issues and the pollution that counts for the most. So last year, we undertook a full carbon footprint of our business. So we look at how we make sails, how we make apparel, how we make kites, and also how we make masts, rigging, and booms. And what this showed us was that most of our impact, most of our climate impact comes from how these products are made, the materials that they are made from, where they are made, how we ship them from manufacturing to our customers, and then even what happens to them at the end of its life. And you can see how important it is, because the orange side of this donut has to do with these emissions, these carbon emissions that are coming from our supply chain. And then the smaller parts of the donut in green and blue are emissions that we are directly responsible for. So how many buildings we have, how many employees we have, how we power these facilities with what types of electricity, if it's renewable or not. So doing this exercise really showed us that we have to focus on the way that we make our product and the types of product that we make. A little bit more in detail, even here you can see that the materials that we choose hold a very, very important part of the impact that we have to the climate and to the environment. There's still some wins that we can have from working on what happens to our products at the end of their useful life. So making sure that they are recyclable at the end of their lives, or that there are responsible ways to dispose of them at the end of their life. But that's just 4% of the entire impact. And because of this, we are choosing to focus on the types of materials that we're using and then how we are manufacturing them. So how do we avoid and we reduce the pollution from manufacturing apparel or manufacturing sails? The first is that we're growing our mix of lower impact materials. So these are materials that are scientifically proven to have a lower impact when it comes to how much pollution they emit during manufacturing, or how much water they consume during manufacturing. We're also increasing the use of renewable electricity at all of our sites. We're at 62% now. We have a pretty big footprint of buildings and facilities across the world, so 62 is very good, and we're working towards 90% by 2029. We're also working on long-term research and development partnerships, because the types of products that we make are very high stakes, very high performing. This isn't work that we can do on ourselves, by ourselves. So we have a bunch of partners across our supply chain and even in the sailing industry, and Jono's going to talk a little bit about our partners there that are working with us to develop better products. And then one big part of it is how do we design with a circular mindset. So how do we design products that are made to be easily deconstructed and then turned into new virgin quality fiber and materials once again. Once we do all these super easy things, there will still be impact, there will still be pollution, there will still be a responsibility for us to try to mitigate that. So what we are doing to get to ocean positive is that we are replenishing the health of the ocean with all sorts of partnerships. You mentioned the Ocean Family Foundation. They're one of our partners who we work with to fund very impactful ecological work like ocean restoration or protecting marine areas around the world. One partner who we're really proud of is the Terra Ocean Foundation. They are a research scientific vessel from Lorient and Paris. They have North Sails. They are also wearing performance North Sails kit. And right now they are doing an exploration in the European seas, testing the water to see how pollution on land, so pollution from, let's say, port cities or pollution from industry on land affects marine life and affects organisms in the ocean. So we're really proud to partner with them and deck them out in our kit and in our sails to make sure that they have what they need to explore the seas. All of this work helps us be one of the only, if not, I think we are the only B Corp certified marine apparel business out there. So we're very, very proud about this. In 2021, we gained B Corp membership, and B Corp is a third-party certification. It was launched in the US a couple of decades ago by Patagonia, and it really looks at your entire business. So not just how you make your products, but how you treat your workers, what type of governance structures you have in place, how you work with your customers to get feedback from them, and then even how you work with your supply chain to ensure that there are strong human rights processes in your supply chain. So we got certified 3 years ago, and this isn't just a stamp that you apply for once, you get it, and you're done. You have to, year by year, show progress, and then every 3 years you get recertified. So we're getting recertified this year, and the sailing business is also in the process of doing that. So, Jono, what changes are you seeing in the racing community, and how we're adapting to environmental changes? Could you speak a little bit about that, please?
Yep. So, well, like I was mentioned before, I had a very privileged, first half of my career, really. I like to say it was the first half because hopefully I'm going to have another career now that sailing's finished. But the America's Cup is probably the as far as those involved in it, for certain, the pinnacle of our sport. And when it comes to the years of effort that go into it, and with the single focus of winning, you become very blinkered. And a lot of the times, you're not, well, not a lot of the time, all of the times, you're not remotely interested in anything else except pure performance and how we can achieve this goal of winning the America's Cup on this specific date in this venue. And over the 23 years that I was involved in these competitions, I was witness to a lot of overconsumption, the winning at all cost mentality that saw huge developments in technology, which sounds fantastic, but it also means that you're throwing out a lot of stuff when something newer comes along. You you transport huge amounts of people to one place for a short amount of time. There was air travel. There was, more sails consumed than I care to remember. I remember I was actually speaking to some people about it the other day, and especially back in the cups that had more sails, soft sails like '07 in Valencia on the version 5 boats. We would measure a sail's life sometimes in minutes. You'd put it up and you'd do one beat and you could do a few tacks on it, and 20 minutes later you'd take it down, you'd stuff it down the front hatch, and that would be its life done. And this was purely because of a performance point of view. Now, luckily I wasn't the only one who was kind of, turning having a sideways look at these sorts of things, and now what we're seeing in the racing industry, whether it's in the America's Cup and the IMOCA class, Sail GP, is that the governing bodies behind these and the people that are running them are really starting to put a sustainable focus in on these racing communities. And for those that follow the Sail GP, and I know it's not your traditional type of sailing, and some people maybe don't like it as much as others, but here's a new breed of sailing regattas where we have a lot of it's more commercial, and we're getting a lot of people looking at it, a lot of TV coverage. And what they're doing there is they've got something in there called the Impact League. And so what they're doing is they are scoring teams on their sustainable impact, and they'll, at the end of each regatta, they'll have to fill out a questionnaire, a form, and how many people came to the regatta, what sort of energy did you use, consumption, waste, and all these things. And then they get a score. And the really cool thing here is that score and their rating then counts to the end of regatta result. And so at the end of the season, they've got their racing results, but also to their impact or their sustainability score. So the sailors can no longer ignore it. They have to take this seriously, because when you're looking for those marginal gains, a couple of points here and there can make the difference in a season. The America's Cup, you have to do a full LCA on all your boats now, and an LCA being a life cycle analysis. Basically, what was the environmental footprint of that boat? And I suspect it is very, very high. But you've got to start somewhere. You need this data, you need this information, like Mădălina said, so we can then actually, in the future, go, well, how do we reduce it? Because otherwise we're just kind of stabbing around in the dark. We don't really know what the true environmental footprint is. So you have, the America's Cup is taking some big steps forward in that regard. The IMOCA class down in France, they are doing some great jobs, and they have brought out something called the green sail, which I'm heavily involved in. And every boat has to have one of these green sails on board. And what a green sail is essentially is we have had to manufacture it in a way that has a reduced environmental impact. So the sail and none of the materials can travel on an aeroplane. So all of the raw materials have to get to our manufacturing facility, and we've got a bit of footage of that later. Has to come either by road, train, boat, and as I'm sure Artie's well aware, there is a lot of things, or a lot of different materials that go into these sails. I've got a spreadsheet that's got over 250 items on it, and so keeping a track on that and making sure nothing comes by air is quite the task. But even into some of your smaller local regattas, you're seeing the Green Sailors certification, where they're just even giving out like a template on how to do regattas and how can we reduce the impact. So more and more we're seeing this sort of governance getting handed down to us, which I think is absolutely fantastic, because in all honesty, if it's left up to us, and I say us, I'm talking the royal we here, all of us, we wouldn't make the change. We need governance sometimes. We need somebody telling us, actually, you need to change your ways, because it's just too easy to carry on as normal.
I wonder, during the LCA process, based on what you learned, have there been any new materials that the team has developed and launched recently for lesser impact sales?
Yes, I love that. That was a real subtle hint for me to talk about it because they thought I was going to forget. Materials, like we're always looking into new materials in sail making, and one of the things that we need to remember is that we can't stray away from kind of the pillars of what we've built, or the company's been built on, which is performance, durability, longevity, strength. These are really, really important pillars to the company, and we don't want to be, quite frankly, building sails that fall apart or don't give you the performance that sailors that you need. That's critical to the company. But as always, we need to be looking at what new materials are evolving and what's coming at us and developing. And recently, the recycled materials that we're starting to see come into the marketplace have improved drastically. And like when I started the company 2 or 3 years ago, we first started investigating, can we make a sail out of recycled polyesters and aramids? And at the time, it probably the performance wasn't there, but we saw quite a big jump in the last year, and we just launched a new cloth this year, which is made out of 98% recycled materials that we're very proud of, and it's not going to cover the pure racing market, but there is definitely in the the cruising market. It's a fantastic option for people who want to buy a cloth that's got a less environmental impact on it. So it's great. Oh, there's a picture of it. Well done.
That is her. We're getting very good feedback on it, I hear, as well. Thank you, Jono. Nigel, I'm going to come to you now. What about designing the technical performance kit? How are you approaching the design with performance, durability, longevity, and sustainability in mind?
Yeah, in a very similar way to sailmaking, I think. I know that there's no one in this room who will pay a premium for a super sustainable product that gets their bum wet at 2 o'clock in the morning, halfway up Fastnet Rock. It won't happen. Our primary objective is we must make the best fan weather gear in the world. And you can't get away from that. We try to do it in a very sustainable way. And it's a process of continuous improvement. We were very fortunate back in 19 when we started designing that we started with a blank sheet of paper. There was no baggage. We could go wherever we wanted to do and choose whatever fabrics we wanted. Recycled fabrics was the front door. That's where we wanted to start, where we possibly could. And about 40% of our range was recycled fabrics. But everyone's doing that. What was the next step? Where could we go next? And the ideal really is that you start with the recycled fabric and you take the product back from the consumer at the end of life and you recycle that product again and turn it into yarn and make more fabrics with it. A proper closed loop system. So again, we've got about 40% of our range which is closed loop now. So we can go to Ocean Race or a corporate sponsor or whoever else. Even eventually we will get set up for consumers and say these 1,000 jackets that you're going to buy for all your guests and everything else, they're going to be used for a 1-week event. We'll take back at the end and we'll send them to our recycling partner who will turn them into yarn for us to make new products with. So the advantage of starting with a clean sheet of paper is that you could set up that sort of closed loop system. And on the continuous improvement front, where we would only use Gore-Tex fabrics for our products. I've been using Gore-Tex for a long time, since 1994 when we launched it. And without doubt, the most durable, waterproof, breathable fabric in the world. And no other fabric in all the testing I've done in 30 years has got anywhere near it. we've just gone through another test cycle last year. And again, none of the Japanese, nobody has got the durability that Gore-Tex has got. But it's made out of polytetrafluoroethylene. So it's not very environmentally friendly, and we can't recycle it. But we've been working with Gore-Tex hard, and in 26 they will be launching a new membrane, which will be recyclable. So that will give us the opportunity to take the next step, and we'll be up to about 80% of the range that'll be recyclable. And it's a process of, it's a journey, as Jono said. You can't do it overnight because the performance falls off a cliff. We must make great products that's durable, is high quality, people are proud to wear, performs exceptionally well. But we must strive to become more sustainable as we do it. And she won't blow her own trumpet, but I will say now, one of the best weapons we've got as a development team is the numbers that Mădălina comes up with. That audit she did over the last 2 years, we now know what we're talking about. We know what our problems are. We know what we have to solve. It was all theory before. But that audit was really key to us getting to where we went to go. And as the industry leaders, as the market leaders in what we do, we have a responsibility to lead the way on sustainability, but the harder we push, the harder our competitors are forced to push. And I think the work that Mădălina's doing is dragging the whole sail-making clothing market in the same direction. Does that cover it?
100%.
Perfect.
But I have a few things to add. More numbers. I just wanted to show a little bit how all of our apparel line looks like. So the light blue is our lifestyle apparel, and the darker blue is the performance. And you will see that later on that we've made significant progress. So most of our synthetic fibers are recycled. Most of our cottons are organic. Nigel spoke about closed loop design. We're introducing monofiber. So these are products that are made from one single material, one single fiber that are thought to be durable, but then easy to disassemble at the end of their lives. And then incorporating more and more recycled fibers to reduce the dependency on fossil fuel-based virgin polyesters. The technology now has made these fibers incredibly high-performing at a level that only virgin fibers used to be in the past. And that's only coming from more demand. So the more customers demand these types of products, these types of materials, the more investment, the more facility, the more supply chain exists for recycled fibers. And the same for organic cotton. Organic cotton still accounts for a fraction of all the cotton that is grown in the world. And Petra likes me mentioning this, but I think lots of people, when they think about cotton, they think about, or they talk about how water thirsty it is, that it's a crop that requires a lot of irrigation, requires a lot of water. So does organic cotton, unfortunately. But the great thing about organic cotton is that it doesn't use synthetic fertilizer. It doesn't use synthetic pesticides. And the background image that you see here is toxic algae bloom that comes from agricultural runoff that is triggered by the use of synthetic pesticides in farming. So you might think, what does a natural fiber grown on land have to do with the ocean? A lot, because these pesticides end up in the water and they end up in the ocean, and they make rivers, lakes, and seas unusable and toxic for all life, not just humans, but also wildlife. I turn to you again, Jono, because I think we get this question a lot about our manufacturing and how it's done, the locations that we have. Could you talk a little bit about how we make sails and where we make them?
Yep, of course. So for those that don't know, we've got two different facilities, main manufacturing facilities. We've got one in Minden, Nevada in the US and another one in Sri Lanka. And I believe we've been in Sri Lanka for the last 30 years and Minden must be similar. And over the years, you know, the two different processes that we have the 3DI process of making a composite sail, which is what you're seeing here. And I guess the easiest way to look at this is it's very, very similar to the way that you would make a composite structure on a yacht or a boat of any type. It's they call it single filament fibers that are laid out over a mold, and as you can see there, that's the shape of a sail. And they'll put, you know, it's all pre-pregged resin, and so it goes down, and then they'll put a vacuum bag over the top of it. They'll suck it down, and they'll activate it with heat. And you can see some of the tapes here that we're running, and essentially the 3D process, which is developed over, you know, the last 10, 15 years, the big benefit behind it is it turns out to be a very lightweight sail. There's very little waste on it because you're putting the fibers exactly where you want them, and it allows you to come up with the strength and the structure exactly where it's required for the type of boat that you've got. So the performance that you see kind of has a double effect, really. You know, with the sail being lighter, we're not transporting a lot of or overweight sails around the world, and it's the process behind it is just incredibly efficient. Now, I don't believe that the other, you know, cloth that we make is a laminate cloth, and again, this is made on site for largely a lot of our fabrics in Sri Lanka. Now, we do have these big manufacturing facilities, and I've mentioned one's in Minden, Nevada, which is a long way away from Europe, and the other one's in Sri Lanka, which is a long way away from Europe. And we can't get away from that. You know, these are facilities that we've built where all of our sails are built. But the benefit of having two large facilities like that is that you're not having to transport different materials all around the world. You know, you can do it in one centralized location, and then you can quite efficiently ship the sails out to, you know, the regions that they're required. So again, these facilities this is sail making, which, you know, like I know when I first started, I expected, you know, people sitting at machines and, you know, drumming fabric through and all the rest of it, and for sure that still happens, but this is cutting edge technology. And I think with technology like this, you gain efficiencies and you're doing things at the best possible way.
The reason why I asked this question is that people are curious why the supply chain is so complex. Why are we making things in many different places? The reality is that we're choosing the best places to make the best product. Nigel, could you speak about how you choose your supply chain partners to make performance kit?
It turns out to be a bit of a no-brainer. There isn't any technical clothing manufacturer in Europe anymore. There's a little bit in Eastern Europe, but the best factories in the world for technical clothing are in China. And because we want to make the best quality, best clothing in the world, we go to the best factories, and that's where they are. No apology for that.
None taken. So, Nigel, product is great, the factories are great. How do you make it last for longer?
Yeah, what, the product?
Yes.
How do these guys make it?
How do they make it last for longer?
Just look after it. At the end of the day, you're paying £1,000 for a set of gear. Wash it. Give it some love every now and again. Gore-Tex loves the washing machine. Not many people do it, but non-biological powder, get it in the washing machine every 3 months. Outside that, wash it off with fresh water after you've been sailing and dry it. The amount of kit that I've seen over my life that's come back with black mould on it because some bloody yachty like him has finished his weekend sailing and put it wet in a kit bag and got it out the next weekend, and funny enough, it's got mould growing on it.
And that's no good.
And that's no good. No.
Just checking on that.
No. And yes, the sponsor will give you another set, but that's not very sustainable, is it? Yeah, wash it, dry it properly, put it away properly, repair it, don't throw it away. We've got a great repair service. We use Gore-Tex repair service, and they have a specialist Gore-Tex repair centre in every country of the world. So it doesn't matter where you are, we give you an address to send your kit to, and they'll repair it, send it back waterproof again. There's no need to buy a new set. Don't do it until you have to.
Thank you. Jono, what can our sailors do to make their sails last longer?
It's actually it's been around since the beginning of sailing, I think. It's very, very similar to what Nigel says. You check over your sails, bring them in for a yearly health check at a loft, have them, an expert look over them, see if there's any weak spots. And, so many sails, if there is a rip and stuff like that, they can be repaired. You can recut them to a certain extent to regain the shape that you may have lost. And it's really just trying to get the most life out of this sailcloth. So often it's actually not the cloth that fails, it's the shape you'll lose performance through because the shape's gone. Now at that stage, actually, because at some stage the sail will come to its end of its first life, and that being of a sail. After that, there's some fantastic things that can be done with the sailcloth, and we've got a couple of partners, one in Europe called 727 Sea Bags, and another one in North America called Sea Bags, just by itself, and they are sail repurposing companies. And so you can take your sails into any loft in North America, or you can in Europe, the same thing. And Sea Bags will pick them up and they'll turn them into duffel bags or sunshades or anything like that. And this is a really, really fantastic use of the cloth. And it sounds very simple, and I know we've all seen it done 1,000 times before, but there is truly a lot of the time nothing wrong with the cloth. So you can really get all the residual value that's in this cloth out. Now, at some stage, even those bags are going to come to the end of their useful life, and that's where we're keeping a very strong eye out on the recycling industry. And can we take these bags and put them back into the value chain by recycling them? Can they be broken down? And to a large extent, there we're waiting for technology to catch up to us. It is a real, it's a problem in the apparel industry. It's a problem with what we've got in the sailmaking industry with these composite fibers, these blended materials, trying to extract out all the different pieces and actually, get them into a worthwhile supply chain again. So, the great thing is actually that the technology is getting there, and it's fueled a lot by, the apparel industry and the massive amounts of clothing that comes to the end of its life every season, every year, every month, it seems. And so, we're very, very hopeful that, in the not too distant future, and I think it'll be in the next couple of years, you will be able to take your sails in and they'll be able to be recycled into, bring them back to the polymers that they were before and then respun, and you'll have another sail out of that same material.
Thank you.
That's very positive.
Excellent work. Thank you, Jono, Nigel.